Welcome to the February 13, 2023 Site Plan Review Committee subgroup meeting for the Americana Hotel Site Plan. We will be holding a hybrid public meeting, which enables remote electronic participation as legally authorized by the Code of Virginia per the Planning Commission's electronic meetings policy adopted July 7, 2022. I skipped this. I am Daniel Weir, chairing this subgroup project. Members of the SPRC subgroup for Americana, for the Americana Hotel Site Plan project are participating tonight both here in person and virtually through electronic means. The SPRC subgroup members participating virtually include, you have your, well, we will do, in lieu of going down the list, we will incorporate the names as people read them off. At this time, I'd like to orient everyone to our hybrid environment and cover a few specifics about how tonight's meeting will run. Members of the public may attend the meeting here in person or electronically by using the Microsoft Teams link provided on the SPRC webpage, the project webpage, the county's events calendar, and the email notification sent to SPRC email subscribers. Additionally, there is a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use it. For our subgroup members joining virtually, if anyone loses internet connectivity during tonight's meeting, please reconnect with us by phone. Please keep your phones and devices muted until you are called upon, and turn off sound to any other devices around you to minimize interference. For our virtual attendees using Microsoft Teams, please turn off your video feed. I will address when it is appropriate to turn it on in a moment. And Microsoft Teams meeting chat is active for two purposes: for SPRC subgroup members who need technical assistance, and for members of the public to add their names to the list for public comment, which will be taken at the end of the meeting. The Teams chat should not be used for discussion. Those who are planning to provide public comment still need to do so at the end of the meeting, as the chat will not serve as that opportunity, and all public comment must be shared virtually or verbally, for the record during the assigned public comment period. For subgroup members participating virtually who wish to be recognized to speak on an item during the course of the meeting, please turn on your video feed and raise your virtual hand in Teams. I will monitor the video feeds that are on as an indicator of who would like to speak. If subgroup members are participating via phone without the video option, please announce your name and the group you are representing now, and I will verbally check in to see if you wish to be recognized as you do not have the video feed option. Last call for anyone participating by phone. Thank you. For our members of the public who would like to provide feedback and comment, you will be called on to speak at the end of the meeting and will be allotted 2 to 3 minutes to speak on tonight's agenda item. The speaking time allotted will depend on the number of speakers we have this evening. And if you wish to speak, please enter your name in the meeting chat for virtual attendees, or provide staff with your name if you are here in person, and you will be added to the speakers list. And lastly, a reminder that this is a public forum. Tonight's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with tonight's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. We will go around the room and introduce ourselves, and then go virtually. I am Daniel Weir from the Planning Commission, again chairing this project.
Hi everyone, Kevin Lamb with the Planning Division.
Joanne Gabor, Arlington County DES.
Hi, Cindy Lewin. I'm here on behalf of the Climate Change, Energy and Environment Commission.
Hi, John Wall, the SPRC representative from Aurora Islands.
Steve Sockwell, Forestry and Natural Resources Committee.
Malcolm Williams, Development Manager at JPGS.
Eric Castle, Crystal City Civic Association.
Haley Norris, here on behalf of the Housing Commission.
Leo Sarley with the Planning Commission.
Kevin Hunt, Pedestrian Advisory Committee, SPRC.
Kevin Yam, not to be confused with Kevin Lamb. Economic Development Commission.
Chris Latt, representing the Transportation Commission.
Simon Peterson, Planning Commission.
I'm going to start just keeping in the room, and then we'll go online. So.
Oh, I'm Peter Schultz. I'm assisting tonight. I'm with the CPH. Thank you, Peter. Is that everybody?
Kendrick Whitmore, I'm with Vanderbilt. I represent the applicant.
Jack Kelly, JVG Smith.
Helena Paul Strazis, JVG Smith. Angela Spadoni, BKL Architecture.
Michael Rose, BKL Architecture.
Louise Richter, Grove Slate Transportation.
Kim Pexton, GBG Smith.
Benjamin Skelton, Cyclone Energy Group.
Tarcy Dunlop, CCCA, Eric Sol. Nia Bagley, Planning Commission.
I think that's everyone. All right, so people on the line, I'll just have you raise your hand to be recognized. We'll go in order of people who raise their hand. Commissioner Lantelmi.
Good evening, Jim Lantelmi, Planning Commission.
Christy Smith.
Hi there, Christy Smith with JBG Smith.
Mayor.
Mayor Godbole with JBG Smith.
Michael and Mike.
Mike Dowell, CCCRC.
Mike O'Hara, Bowler DC, civil engineer for the project.
Is that everyone online who wishes to? Yeah, do we have some participants up high? Adrian and
Adrian McCrave, Lee and Associates. We're the landscape architects.
Thank you. And Mayor, your hand is still raised, and then go to Carol.
Carol Fuller, backup for CCCRC to Mike Dell.
Thank you. I think that's everyone. Then I'm going to go to Mr. Lamb.
All right, so I wanted to kick off the meeting by providing a brief overview presentation of the various topics for tonight's SPRC meeting on the Americana Hotel. Screen a bit bigger. So in terms of project updates, while the building footprint remains largely unchanged, the applicant has made several design changes based on feedback from both staff and the applicant. So this exhibit shows the ground floor plan with the assumed future at-grade Route 1 condition. So starting with the east-west pedestrian pathway, so the applicant has agreed to grant a public access easement for this pathway connecting Route 1 and South East Street upon completion of the at-grade Route 1 condition. They also provided changes to the green space and private amenity area in order to accommodate this pathway. They added a secondary residential entry just off of Route 1 on the corner of the building. This leads to the newly relocated amenity space and fitness center, which is now on the eastern end of the building, further activating that major street frontage. In terms of building massing, the applicant has revised their facades on the major street frontages to include step backs, more consistent with the sector plan guidance. If you are having trouble seeing my screen, Mike, try leaving the meeting and joining again. It should be up there. But just continuing on, so the applicant is providing 5 to 8 foot setback above the podium. And then lastly, the applicant is introducing a small dog run area, kind of at the terminus of the private driveway. And then moving on to transportation, kind of in a nutshell, so the project is bounded by 2 major street frontages, South East Street and Richmond Highway. So in terms of South East Street, the applicant has been coordinating with the county, especially with regards to the county's complete South East Street Complete Street Transportation Project, which seeks to introduce protected bike lanes, a 6-foot landscaping strip, and 10-foot sidewalks along East Street in front of this project. In terms of Richmond Highway, the applicant is also coordinating with another project that is currently being studied. This one is the VDOT's Route 1 multimodal improvement study. Currently, the proposal is looking to create an at-grade urban boulevard along this portion of Richmond Highway adjacent to the site. And then since this project will likely be completed prior to completion of the Route 1 at-grade condition, this site plan and the design is being coordinated with both the existing and the proposed conditions of Route 1 in mind. And then lastly, in terms of parking and loading, the applicant is proposing 0.6 spaces per unit through a combination of both on-site as well as off-site parking, which will be located at the nearby Bartlett Apartments garage. So as a result, the Bartlett Apartments will have their parking ratio reduced through a separate minor site plan amendment, going from 1 to 0.7 spaces per unit. And then lastly, the applicant will be providing 257 on-site bike parking spaces, as well as 4 loading spaces for residential and retail uses. So in terms of green building and sustainability, the applicant is participating in the Green Building Incentive Program, earning additional density at the 0.25 FAR level. So part of this program, the applicant will be achieving LEED Gold certification, at least a 20% energy optimization performance improvement, an Energy Star score of at least 75, as well as meeting the baseline prerequisites, which include Energy Star appliances and WaterSense fixtures, EV charging, as well as bird-friendly glass. And then lastly, in terms of community benefits, here's just a snapshot of the preliminary recommendations to earn the additional density of 3.82 FAR. So the first kind of category is affordable housing. So the applicant will look to provide either a cash contribution to the Affordable Housing Investment Fund or some on-site units. They will be providing contributions for off-site transportation improvements, such as the South 8th Street Complete Street project I mentioned earlier. There will be contributions for off-site open space improvements, such as the planned Metro Market Square in Crystal City, just outside the Crystal City Metro entrance. And then, as I mentioned before, there's the granting of the public access easement in the future. And then, as I previously mentioned, the applicant will be earning additional density through participation in the Green Building Incentive Program. So that's it from me. I'd like to pass it off to the applicant for their brief presentation.
Thank you, Kevin. We will get started. Again, my name is Malcolm Williams of JBGS, and I'm going to give a brief intro to our presentation today. As always, we remind everyone the full presentation and PDF is available on our project website. So if you have any questions or questions, that's an easy reference point. So I'm going to share my screen. So we're going to start our presentation with updates from SPRC1. We had a bevy of feedback coming out of that meeting and heading into that meeting, and I think we did a pretty good job of incorporating what we heard and taking into consideration some things we didn't hear to make the building better. That update will be covered by our architect of record, BKL, represented by Angela and Michael. Next, we'll cover our sustainability portion. That will be covered by my colleague, Ken Pexton, as well as Benjamin at Cyclone Energy. They are by far and away the experts on the subject matter, so I will be referring almost all of those questions to those two people. For transportation, we'll pass to our colleague, Carolina, who will cover that portion. And then lastly, she will also wrap up the community benefits. And then we will try to be expeditious with this presentation. Our last run through was about 12 minutes, so we appreciate your patience. And after that, we'll get into our Q&A and we'll defer to Mr. Wood on the next steps. So with that, I will pass to Angela and get out of the way.
Thank you, Malcolm and Kevin, and thank you all for your, I see a lot of familiar faces in the room from last time and a few new, and I'm sure there's many people online as well that was at our first SPRC. So thank you all for giving the time for the project and for your comments from the first SPRC 1. So as Kevin alluded to, we did work a lot on the setback from the podium to tower to give a more pronounced podium. So just to orient everyone on the image on the right, you're seeing Eads in the foreground, Richmond Highway in the background, and then the proposed building in the center. You're seeing the dimensions in blue, and from the plan diagram on your left, how these setbacks are from the podium, which is the light kind of aqua line, and then the darker blue line is showing the tower, and how on both Eads and Richmond, we're setting 5 and 8 feet back. This next slide is showing from the current Richmond Highway conditions and those towers podium setbacks as well. Additionally, from the first SPRC, this is a new rendering. It was requested that this view was included. So this just really shows how we've used the same high quality materiality in all sides of the building. This building does not have a back. It's equally visible, if not more, from Richmond. So we really want to think about that. And then this is showing it in the proposed or future Richmond Highway condition where the highway is lowered. And you're seeing that activated podium expression setback from the tower with the amenity along Richmond. So you're seeing that in this view. The other thing that we talked a lot about in SPRC 1 was what we defined at that meeting as the tabletop trellis or not canopy. So this is, we wanted to talk a little bit more about this. This is the element that's encapsulating kind of what we see as all of our public realm spaces, including that north side, east-west pedestrian passageway between Eads and Richmond, our residential entry, the retail, the level 2 amenity that can interact with Eads, and then the vehicular entrance on the south. So a lot of what came out of that conversation was questions about scale and also materiality. So we included this slide to kind of talk through some of that. The height is 30 feet of this tabletop element. We're looking at the vertical fins to be around 2 feet. We want this to feel light and airy, not overpowering or monumental. Feedback we received, but we obviously have to make it stand. So we feel that this will allow for structural, the proper structural and cladding. In terms of cladding, we are looking at 2 different materials. On the vertical element, we're looking at a cast panel cladding. This is going to be reminiscent of what's used on the tower, so it will relate to that. And it'll also bring some warmth and durability to the structure as it meets the ground. Overhead, we're looking at transitioning materiality, not so much color, but giving a different material. We're looking at a metal cladding. This will help it have a lighter feel above head. We don't want to have heavy cast panel cladding over someone's head. It won't feel as nice. So light, airy expression there. The other thing I wanted to draw your attention to in this rendering is the some of the bench and biophilic elements we added into the entryway of the residential entry and exterior retail. We've been working with landscape to incorporate these elements to just bring more biophilic element and warmer and activate the entry and retail area as well. So this is the view as you're exiting the building from the residential area. It's reading a little bit dark on the screen, but hopefully at home maybe it's reading a little differently. We have incorporated some of that biophilic elements you're seeing and some of those additional bench seating along the entry. You're seeing that tabletop turn and kind of create this outdoor room. The vertical fins are spaced about 1 foot 5 inches apart. We've done this because, again, we want the structure to feel light and airy and let light pass through, but we do not want pedestrians transversing through the tabletop structure. So this still directs them out towards Eads, but gives enough to create an outdoor room feel and light and air. And I'm going to pass it. Thank you, guys.
Again, I'm Benjamin Skelton with Cyclone Energy Group. We're the sustainability consultant. This is an overview of some of the major sustainability initiatives that the project is undergoing. As mentioned in the opening, the project is seeking LEED Gold certification. We have over 60 points on our checklist. The project will feature ENERGY STAR labeled appliances, dishwashers, refrigerators, laundry machines. The energy model is contributing towards the zero carbon feasibility study. So we're studying different elements and how that impacts the carbon use of the building from an operational standpoint. And then the plumbing fixtures are going to be water sense labeled. We are performing a life cycle assessment on embodied carbon. This is materials like fenestration products, concrete, steel, looking at the carbon impact there. So that's a separate model. The refrigerant charge oversight is accomplished as there's no line set refrigerant. There's no refrigerant charging that will happen on site in this project. We have an energy model that's demonstrating a path to 20% energy performance. We have a slide to kind of show a little bit of overview on that. Angela just presented some of the biophilic elements of the property materiality, the benches, the planters on each street. Again, the energy model is contributing towards understanding the Energy Star certification post-construction. So we're tracking that 75 score or higher so for the certification. Bird-friendly glass is being incorporated into the design between the 8 and 36-foot zone of the project. And we have electrical vehicle charging stations and readiness at 5% with level 2 chargers on site and 15% EV ready. And we're looking at light pollution reduction using dark sky friendly light fixtures. And JBG Smith has some commitments to offsite tier 2 renewables as well as commitments to EDI. Real brief without going into a lot of detail, this is one of our preliminary energy studies based on an energy model we did of the project. And these are some of the more major impactful elements that are being incorporated into the design. A better building envelope. We're controlling the fresh air intake from the makeup air using variable speed controls. And LED lighting is incorporated in residential areas as well as the common elements. The water source heat pumps that are being used in the project are high efficiency. And as I just mentioned, Energy Star rated appliances and water sense labeled plumbing fixtures make a pretty significant impact to the project. I'll hand it off. Here we go.
Hi everyone, once again, Carolina Paus-Grasdes from JBG Smith, and I'll be reviewing some of the transportation context related to the project. Starting off here with our overview, our site's located here, north of 15th Street, with frontages both on Southeast and Route 1. It's between the Pentagon City and the Crystal City Metro, which are less than a 10-minute walk away from the site, and it offers multiple bus routes as well as a well-connected pedestrian and bicycle network. Here we can see the pickup and drop-off condition rendered that reflects the county's planned 12th to 15th Street improvements for Southeast Street. That includes a 7-foot pickup and drop-off zone located outside of the adjacent traffic lanes that will fit up to 3 cars at a time. The passenger would then be dropped off on the median here and would walk past the striped protected bike lane before stepping back up on the curve of the sidewalk. Note, as we work through the details of the design, we're going to be sure to incorporate the best practices for striping and signage to reduce the potential for multimodal traffic conflicts. This is just a more diagrammatical plan of the previous slide with our pickup and drop-off area located here in orange with the 3 cars. Additionally, we are talking with our neighbors at Embassy Suites for the potential for pickup and drop-off opportunity here north of the site by incorporating some improvements to landscaping to connect it to the Americana site. This diagram reflects the loading area that's accessible from the curb cut south of the site and outlines the path of travel envisioned for package delivery. As reflected by the pink arrows, carriers such as FedEx, UPS, USPS, and others would be able to pull into the loading area that we strategically located close to the pre-programmed amenity space for the mail and package room, just to create a shorter distance of travel to make it as convenient as possible. Regarding the pedestrian connection, the Southeast improvement plan by the county will realign the sidewalk with the neighboring sites, the width of which will be 6 feet of landscaping and 10 feet of sidewalk with a pedestrian pathway. The main residential entrance is located here off of Southeast Street underneath that canopy structure that we were looking at, and will be activated by the outdoor retail patio and the public benches that Angela reviewed earlier. There will also be additional entry points located here on the northeast corner of the building by the amenity space, as well as 2 entrances from the south side of the building, both by the loading and the dog relief area. During SPRC 1, there was also some questions regarding the path of travel for residents with bikes. So the next couple of slides will just outline that intended circulation path. starting with residents accessing the elevator from an additional entrance on the south side of the building that I had just pointed to. So from this elevator, you could go to lower levels 1 and 2, where the bike storage room is a short walk away. We also provided a little bit of detail on the initial design that we had for the bike storage, including the standard spaces located here, as well as some wall-mounted bicycle rack spaces here, and an opportunity for charging e-bikes located over here. Our project's currently designed to have a parking ratio of 0.6 spaces per unit, half of which is going to be on site and below grade, and the other half which would be located just down the block at the Bartlett Apartments. Then I'm just going to quickly go over some community benefits. I think Kevin actually touched on a lot of this during his presentation, but JBG Smith is having active discussions about making an open space contribution to fund Metro Market Square, as well as a contribution for the South East Street improvements referenced in the previous transportation section. Additionally, we're working with the county on details for the pedestrian pathway that would connect Eads with Route 1 in the future condition, as well as some details for the affordable housing contribution, whether it be a cash contribution or on-site units. As mentioned in the previous slide, JBG Smith intends to participate in the GBI program for this project. Thank you all for your time this evening, and we look forward to your feedback as we open up for questions and discussion.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I am going to go with my normal approach, which is just to have everyone go around the table with just sort of factual or clarifying questions, and try to keep it very much informational, and then we'll come back a second time around for any comment or question on that topic. So we will begin. Let's begin with transportation. If you have questions specific to the updates, then you can ask those in the transportation section as well. But trying to keep it to as on schedule as we can. So we'll start here.
C2E2?
Yes.
Okay, so am I supposed to just ask about transportation?
Or past.
Okay.
Or
I have
updates, or project
I have
updates.
a factual question, which is, I understand that the project's going to use gas, hot water, heat, and you guys have said included but not limited to hot water, heat. Is the HVAC going to be all electric? I don't know, I'm looking at you, but you just happen to be sitting next to me. So I understand. But is just, when this information says including but not limited to hot water, heat, is the HVAC system, which is of course the other big system, is that all electric? Maybe I should be looking at Benjamin. But he's not sitting next to me.
Benjamin is the appropriate person.
But I can certainly answer that. So the building is primarily using electric for conditioning the spaces. And there's water source heat pumps throughout the building for all our units, and that has a very high performance factor to it. It is supplemented with heat source with boilers. The boilers that are being used are natural gas. They are the highest efficiency natural gas boiler, condensing boiler with 96+% efficiencies. And so that's minimizing the amount of natural gas that's being used. Throughout the units, there's no natural gas introduced to any of the residential areas.
So is that so that 96% boilers, that's part of the HVAC, not part of the DHW?
That's in the domestic hot water also would have that same high efficiency condensing boiler.
Okay, thank you.
A couple of questions on transportation. So in taking a look at the diagram for the bike room, is there 2 bike rooms that are being represented?
That's correct. So we have 2 below grade parking levels, and so they mirror each other. First level would be G1, second level would be G2.
Because I was trying to do the math and I was only coming up with 119 for the one that I saw.
Yes.
And then also understanding, so for the 16 class 3 bicycles, is there an expectation that all of those will have electric so they can be charged?
That's what we're working on. Okay. So that was brought to our attention last SPRC and something that we're currently studying, and I think we'll make it to the finish line of.
Okay. And then the other concern, I think we touched on it last time, for residents who are going to be parking in the Bartlett, what arrangements are going to be made for them to drop their groceries off, drop off their Costco visit, drop off their whatever. Because I'm assuming it's not going to be expected that they're going to park in front of the building at that whatever those 4 slots are. So what is the arrangement going to be made for somebody who parks in the Bartlett and resides in this hotel, or the hotel, the apartment?
I know what you mean. That's a great question. It's something we're studying with the asset management team.
Okay.
So the current concept is folks who have a lot of spaces in the Bartlett will have access to the Americana garage. We're still working on what that exactly means. So that would, so you would be able to get in, you may not be able to stay. And so what we're evaluating is those types of logistics and understanding, frequency of trips, what we think the estimation will be for folks using the PUDO, as you mentioned, in lieu of trying to pull into the garage. And then there's probably some natural human behaviors that we're just not going to be able to avoid, and folks double parking and doing all types of nefarious activities. But in general, we would prefer folks have a dedicated space in our garage. And I think once we get a little bit further in design and understand exactly where things are going to shake out, we'll have a better answer, and that'll definitely be part of our SPRC follow-up.
Okay. And then it looks like cyclists are expected to take an elevator to go. Is there an elevator dedicated to them to bring the bike up and down, or are they getting on the elevator with residents who may or may not be coming up and down?
That's a great question. I don't think we have an answer specifically yet, but that's something we can definitely study. Angela or Michael, I think we've really studied that nuance yet.
Not yet, not specifically dedicating it to bike parking, but
yeah,
certainly something we can study.
I mean, what we have thought about, and there's 2 methods of entry as you come in through the south side of the building, and that would be your shortest path of travel, so to speak, because that would take you right to an elevator bay. Once you hit the elevator bay, you're just going downstairs. So hopefully there's not as many people queuing there. The second path of travel, a little bit longer, but maybe more cyclist friendly, would be just to pull through the garage and go straight through. And
yeah, I mean, there is in terms of there is one elevator that we want cyclists to use because it is the shortest, and we think that's what they use. We would prefer them not going through the lobby and, taking a bike through that way. So in that terms, there is as you can see on the screen, an elevator that is not dedicated, but we are proposing as use for bicyclists. The shortest way in, shortest way to your bike parking stall. So I don't know why you would use a different elevator, but that's not to say that residents aren't coming in on the other side and also using that elevator.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we're sort of suggesting this is going to be a shift in behavior and sort of suggesting perhaps more cyclists. So I think we have to, if that is in fact the case, I think we have to make sure that we're sort of anticipating that. And then the other question that was raised was, with regard to parking at the Bartlett, we're shifting over, I guess we have 206 slots, parking spaces over there in the Bartlett. What kind of study is being done to the impact for those people with Whole Foods being there and with the 2 Amazon headquarter buildings? And I know there's discussion of a daycare center that might be in that area. What is being done to sort of anticipate the additional parking that's going to occur? Obviously, it won't be in the Americana, but it's going to be impacted because the Americana isn't supporting those parking spaces. So what is the plan for that?
Yeah, another great question. Something we're also thinking really heavily about. So just for frame of reference, at the Bartlett, that first grade of parking is dedicated solely for Whole Foods. So the subsequent 2 levels are where the residential and other uses come in. So we so far haven't had many issues with that first level of parking. That second level of parking, the Bartlett's average ratio of parking somewhere floats around 70 to 75% of occupancy. So we feel pretty good about that, and that's with pretty soft, let's say soft marketing of those parking spaces.
Okay.
So we have some plans that we've discussed internally to, make that a little bit more stringent. And then we think that delta between what's currently happening and, assuming this all goes according to plan and we deliver our building in 2026, 2027, when those spaces would actually be needed, I think kind of speaking to the trends that you're talking about, there's likely a lower ratio of usage.
Okay.
And I think that's what we're counting on at this juncture. But we are definitely evaluating all scenarios when it comes to parking.
Yeah, I think it's just more the question about the impact on traffic, because we are going to be shifting folks, across the street, people obviously crossing the street to come back to the place, and then there's other stuff expected to be in that area. So I guess I'm not sure how the transportation studies are done, but ensuring that we're accounting for the fact that we're moving people across the street, and there's other stuff planning to be built in that area. So.
Yeah, so I'll actually bounce past you to Felice.
Okay.
Who was our transportation expert.
Oh, good.
And she will have a more robust answer for you.
Yep,
Awesome.
yeah. We did do a multimodal transportation assessment that we typically do for 4.1s to look at that. We knew that, for the site, there was going to be parking provided at the Bartlett, so we routed our trips accordingly. So we did look at that, kind of the projections of new trips coming over to the Bartlett and to the Americana. So we didn't see any impacts to intersections or anything. I know one thing that we did also look at, if you can see on the screen here, is that with Met Park coming in across the street, there's going to be the two new signalized intersections at 13th and 14th,
right?
Which is going to provide those two new pedestrian signalized crossings there as well. So I think that is another thing that kind of helps that flow between the two sites.
And do we know where parking comes out for Met 6 and 7 and 8?
Yes, so for Met, there's two parking entries. For Met Park 6, it's on 13th between South Elm and South East Street. And then for Met Park 7, 8, it's on Elm between 14th and 15th.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Pass.
I have a question more on pedestrians. I noticed the path is only for when Route 1 comes down. And why? And if it's because grade elevations, what's happening under current conditions between this site and the informal path that exists next to Route 1?
That's a great question. Okay. We'll pull up the plan so we can do something online.
Okay.
But you're right, Eric, the driving factor there in terms of the timing of that would be that there is a fairly substantial grade difference between where the finished grade of the slab of the building will be and when we walked out there a couple months ago, where that kind of little trail is.
Right.
That you're referencing. So in theory, yeah, you could get down there with a set of stairs. You probably spend more time out there. I'm not sure how much traffic that area gets, but that is the kind of main issue you'd have to deal with in terms of the existing condition and allowing the public to come through there without the future condition being in place.
So looking at.
No, it's funny. You can see it. This is the existing condition here. The first, flip back to the first one there. You can see that dark black line. Maybe we can zoom in a little bit. We don't have the dimension on here. I believe it's maybe 8 feet. Look at this. Pull the exact number for you, but it would definitely require a set of stairs, and we can look at handicap access and things like that as well.
Okay, so my question is, okay, I understand about you can't get to the road, and there's no sidewalk on the road anyway, so you can't get to the road, but there is that informal path, and so my question is this building going to be at a different grade than your neighbor, and if so, what does that look like when you're going up against your neighbor? Okay, so do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, is it going to be the same elevation as the hotel at that point, or are you going to be a different grade? And if there's a different grade, what's that look like as far as, what's that look like?
Sure. Mike, do you know the grade change at those 2 points?
Yeah, at the back corner, it's about a 6-foot drop from where our first ground level is to that lower grass level where Embassy Suites currently is. Embassy Suites site grade changes, so at the front of the site, we're level with Embassy Suites. It dips down, it comes back up, so we're kind of at grade at a couple different points. I think the area that you're specifically talking about towards the back, towards the highway, our first floor is about 6 feet above.
So what's that going to look like is if I'm a pedestrian and I walk up that path, what am I going to see when I get to your site? And looking at your site from the Embassy Suites side, what am I going to see? Am I going to see a concrete wall? Are you going to have a retaining wall there because it's going to be higher? Or what am I going to see?
You'll see we'll have a finished wall of the lower level. So it'll be a cladded wall, but it will be a solid wall that's coming out of the ground. That is basically the exterior wall of the lower level of the garage.
Yeah.
So it'll be like a concrete wall.
It'll be a clad wall, yes, but
It will not
yes.
be concrete, but yeah. It'll be finished. It won't.
Yeah.
And it's not like you'll still be able to, correct me if I'm wrong, continue on that path. That wall is gonna be like on your, your west side, right?
Right.
That path is existing, but there's a finished wall there. That's the actual, it's not a retaining wall, it's the actual wall of the garage.
Okay, so is there going to be a space between your property and Route 1 wall?
Yes.
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 And will that be at the grade of the NBC Suites, or will that be at your grade?
Current grade.
It'll be at the NBC Suites grade?
Current grade.
Yes.
Current grade
Okay.
remaining.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Until
gotcha.
it's lowered, then once the Richmond Highway is proposed, then we'll regrade that area, in response to how Richmond Highway is being proposed.
Okay, I think I'm beginning to understand.
Kelly?
Pass on transportation.
Oh, Pam might ask this question, but I'm very curious about the possibility of the PUDO on the Embassy Suite, and then how that would impact paths of desire. And Pam, feel free to augment the question, but how that would impact entry points, path of desire. This might go to architecture a little bit, and how that whole would reconfigure that site, or what are you envisioning?
Thank you for the question. So when you say paths of desire, you mean just like the natural flow of pedestrians?
Right, because we have the we're not calling it a canopy, the tabletop. The tabletop has the fins, right?
Yep.
And the louvers are intentionally designed so people don't go through it. But at 1'5", you can see a kid will sneak through it. And if you start to pick up and drop off, you can see that
You can
there's
see
gonna
here
start
where
to have-
Anna's hand, the tabletop does not go far back, that far back. So that's where it ends.
Right, okay.
So then if there is a drop off there, there's the opportunity that we can create a connection to that area in green that would then connect straight to the entry. So we purposely didn't have that tabletop go far enough back to interrupt that opportunity to the north.
So theoretically, you would leave the building, make a right, and then take the path
Not
north.
transverse through the
Right,
tabletop.
however the design ends up being, but
Correct.
you're envisioning access through that little landing. Okay, that's it.
That was one of my questions when I was there. Where exactly do you think the parking for PUDO is going to be up there at the Embassy Suites?
So I can't give you an exact, because we just started a conversation with with that Passion Realty, who's the group that owns that hotel. What we're approximating is where this arrow is, because they have some restrictions on just what their normal flow of operations is. They have buses that arrive, they have this lane that's right up north to our site. The entry point for theirs driveway is not wide enough for 2 cars to queue. So it has to be pushed a little bit into where this, it's not a circle, but where the curvature starts, where you would make the left turn to go towards their entrance. So we're kind of contemplating that area, right where the arrow is the potential PUDO spot.
And there's a huge change in slope between their land and our land. So how are pedestrians going to navigate it? How are we dealing with that?
So by the time this building is done, that grade change won't be so substantial. I don't have a final. It'll be some, but it'll be, ADA compliant. We'll make sure it checks all the boxes so folks in wheelchairs or any types of modalities that involve that type of transportation will be able to get in and out without any issues.
And you think you could do 3, 4, 5 vehicles over there?
We haven't studied that yet, but we'll definitely have an answer for you.
I think 3 should fit there. We've just kind of sketched it out. We're in early conversations about that, but to your point about the pedestrian path of travel, that would need to be ADA compliant. And given the distance is pretty short, it would be likely fairly secure.
That would be able to be
We would make that, a nice experience for people with landscaping. And, as Malcolm mentioned, getting cars out of the path of travel of that kind of main entrance would be the next level of detail. But I think just based on approximating the average size of a car, 3 cars should fit there.
Okay. How many questions could I have? My first question was going to be about slide 7 on the presentation of the staff report, the staff presentation, which everybody in your presentation, in your staff report, it all says 10-foot clears on I-8th Street, 2.5, give or take, a shy zone. But on your slide 7, the complete concept plan here, which I think is taken from 4.1, it still shows 8-foot clear zone and 4.5 shy zone, which I really hope isn't right. And this came up at the last meeting, and we really need to make sure that everybody knows that what gets built is a 10-foot clear zone, because you don't need a huge shy zone, because everything's gonna go through. So, that's one question. Okay. I think the plans last time for the bike room, the doors went in or something. Did you fix the doors for the bike room so that they're more easy for cyclists to get in and out of?
If we did, we will.
Okay, yeah, it was like, there's no way you can do it.
Yeah.
Is that a yes?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we don't
please.
think so.
Okay,
They're
yeah,
not right.
that's one. Let's see, when you're exiting the residence, I'm still not happy that you have to go 50 feet. You've created some benches along the side that people can sit, which is okay, next weather's not gonna be pleasant in the winter or when it's not into leaves and and then you keep walking straight to pick up your Kudo in one of those street places on east. It looks like the landscaping strip is kind of blocking that, so I'm wondering how, like somebody with a wheelchair or something navigates through that.
Maybe we can pull up a diagram for you. There should be the rendering. There should be a break in the tree pit, and
Okay.
it may not be easy to see in this image
Okay.
in particular, but just beyond that bike rack there would be an example of.
And they're wide enough for a wheelchair?
Yes.
Okay. And in your loading zone area, I see there's like 3 that go up, and then there's one that goes straight, the arrow goes straight forward. What is it going to? Is that a loading zone?
Let's pull it up, make sure we're talking about the same thing. It could be representing the path of travel for a larger truck that needs to pull in further and then back in to make a 3-point turn.
It just wasn't clear what it was.
We'll make sure.
Okay.
Is that right here? Okay, yeah.
And Eric asked about the excess, which is good to ask with it. It seems like, and I don't remember which slides it were, not always clear that, is it correct that the public can use the east-west passageway at least partway once the building's open? You can't, may not be able to go all the way to the end because you've got stuff, or can we go to the end?
You can go to the end,
Okay.
just.
I think it's going to
that's-
the
yeah.
That was a little bit confusing from some of the drawings.
I was similarly confused.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thanks.
My question's been asked. So this is all great. I definitely would love you to take a look at the access to the bike room. Just anytime it's not directly accessible from the outside of the building, it's always like, how many doors am I holding open? Like while pushing my bike. So that would be great. My other question is, in the future condition when we maybe brought Route 1 to grade, there is, seems like we are going to also have bike facilities on Route 1, not just on 8th Street. Am I correct in thinking that that's probably more of a circuitous route for somebody coming down Route 1? Probably have to go down this new passageway all the way around and come in the front lobby or come around the parking area or whatever. I assume you can't come through that additional fitness amenity door that's on the Route 1 end?
So you should be able to.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons we contemplated it. I believe Jim, last SPRC, had made a note about folks getting off the metro, coming on that side of the street. And that's probably the likely entry point for the building, so.
All right, that's all I got.
Hi, I had questions about the easement and the pedestrian access. Who will be in charge of maintenance and safety of that road? For example, snow or ice storm, putting down salt, or if any work needs to be done on it, if it's public easement, is that the county or will you all be taking care of that?
I think I can answer that. So normally there is a standard county public easement that's required, and it requires the developer to essentially do everything. Don't know what exactly it'll be, but that's my guess.
Thank you.
Following up on something that Pam brought up, if you haven't, can you consult with Rosemary and the Disabilities Commission not just for transportation issues, but throughout the building. Because she always has things that are probably more top of mind than the rest of us are. And she goes far into just beyond, accessibility issues to universal design.
Okay.
So I am a little concerned about wheelchairs and things. I think she would be the expert on that, and it would be probably better to get her involved earlier than later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you.
Sure.
Pass.
Anyone online? Jim?
Yeah, I have a question about the pedestrian passage. And look like there are less than a handful of residences that would be facing it. Will they have doors to access that pedestrian pathway? Or are they only is the only access to those units inside the building?
Jim, just a point of clarification, you're saying
Yes,
the
those,
current
right
condition or the future condition?
Those right there.
Got it. So they will have, I'll let you answer that, Angela. Michael, I believe.
Say currently they only have interior access.
Well, I think the other thing that's not clear in this image is that that space is shared though. So like they could have access to the shared space, but there could easily be a door added to the shared space to allow people that are using that space, whether they get out from their unit or from the gym, to be able to kind of do the shortcut to the path there. Otherwise, they'd have to go to the corner, which is the far right of the page there, where the arrow is, which opens up, the entrance and the access to the path.
The main port of entry is inside.
Yeah, the reason I asked for that is that it's a nice long space. I love the idea of having this. I just want it to feel as secure and complicated as possible. And by having more doors on that, more people using those doors, it creates more people using the space and thus there's more safety. I'm pretty confident you'll have good lighting along it and no hidden places. But I want it to be something that people, and it's going to be great for the on Richmond Highway having that sidewalk there. It's another reason for people to get to it and walk along it. I just want it to be as safe and appear to be and feel as safe as possible to encourage usage. So that's my point on that. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else online? I have a question regarding project updates. I don't know, Kevin, if this is for you or Ken, but can you I'm going to have you put the slide, the image that I sent you, just for some context to know, so that you all know it's not you. It's a previous thing that went wrong. So this is the Boston pedestrian bridge, and on the left is what was presented in terms of the design, the struts, and on the right is what was built. And so I specifically have a sort of once burned and asking about the specifically the 2-foot widths that you discussed for the tabletop, and then also the distances between it. And so my question is when you actually are going to your final sort of CO or building designs, if you find that you have to make a change to the presented spec, is that a minor site plan amendment? Is that a major site plan amendment? And what process for community response would we have to make sure that what is the delta between what's approved and what's built is less stark than the delta that we got?
I can take a whack at it. Kevin may want to add too. So there are very few definitions, Chair Weir, about what constitutes an admin change versus a minor amendment versus a major amendment. It's largely up to the discretion of staff and the zoning administrator as to what process they think is appropriate. That being said, we have had in a number of projects, the Ames Center comes to mind recently, where kind of the renderings and the discussion, there's been a big point of emphasis on, we want the project to look like what we are seeing, which makes makes total sense, right? You all are seeing this, you're approving and calling for a certain view that you've seen. You don't want to see something entirely different when it comes out. I am certain, just parenthetically, that the tabletop, we've had a ton of discussion with design staff, not only Mr. Lamb, but also Chris Kreider and members of his group, because it is such a prominent architectural feature on this building. I have to imagine that it is going to get a significant amount of scrutiny at the time that we go in, and that if there are any significant changes to it that would make it deviate from what's shown here, there'd be a pretty robust review. But without the objective measures to do that, because it is a little bit squishy as to what constitutes what, it's a little tough to say for certain one way or the other. So I don't know, Kevin, do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, since it is kind of standing out as a architectural feature as part of the site plan, it may be worth further considering whether it should be called out in the condition set and kind of making it more explicit, whether a certain type of change needs an admin change or a site plan amendment, because it is so, visible from the street level. It would definitely have a big impact on, the public realm. So that's something we can, further consider as we, move towards writing the conditions and thinking about those.
Right. And my only question about that, and we have to obviously be careful anytime we write conditions, is that, oftentimes when a project goes to construction, there are differences we find, whether it's related to material availability, grade, a number of different factors that require small adjustments. I would hate for us to, be looking for the spirit of, hey, this is the design intent, but the letter of the law says something like it must be this size, and well, for whatever reason, we can't make it exactly that. It's 4 inches off. Right. Does that really injure the design intent? Hopefully not.
Well, this isn't the place to settle it, but sure. I wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Fair question.
I want to go around again, just in case anyone on transportation wants to make points or raise additional questions before we move to green building and sustainability. We'll start with you.
Pass.
Right.
Just follow up on the question about, we keep coming back to that walkway. So somebody said it will be available to the public even without Richmond Highway going to grade. So anybody can walk down that path seemingly because there is going to be a resident entry point at the end. So clearly there's something allowing you to navigate along there to get to that point. So if I happen to be out walking, I can walk down that path.
Absolutely. Okay.
Steve, pass again?
Yes.
Sure.
I would just add a comment that after thinking about it, that one of the things I think you want to think about is how the building is going to look from below grade along Route 1, and it's going to look at in the intermediate phase before Route 1 comes down to grade. How is that going to look? Because you're going to have a space between Route 1 and this building, and how is that going to collect, for example, graffiti or something like that? I mean, there's some chances that this can look really bad if there's not something done, maybe artistically, doing something easy that's temporary so that it doesn't look bad. And so I think that's a concern.
We share your concern.
Great.
Pass.
Pass again. Leo?
I'm good, thank you, sir.
Pam?
Back to the tabletop, and it's set up so it's like, you said 1.5 foot apart, the pieces, things like that, which a child could get through, a dog could get through, and are you concerned about that?
No, I mean, their head's not gonna get stuck or anything, but there's gonna be landscaping on the other side, and, as you can see, I mean, so a person could squeeze themselves usually through as well. But no, I wouldn't say I'm concerned you're gonna have to tramp through the landscape. So that would be unfortunate, I guess. So I guess the concern would be the landscaping. But I mean, we've really studied this distance, and we don't want people we want it to be known that you're not supposed to go through, right? Okay. But we don't want it to be so dense.
Signage.
We don't want it to be so dense that that you're taking away the porosity of light and air. So there is this fine line that we are trying to consider. But a concern of someone walking through there or a dog running through, no, I don't think we have a concern Unless I'm missing something that I should be concerned about. Let me
I
know.
know. I just, losing your kid, losing your dog, getting stuck in there.
Yeah, it's not a fence. It's not meant to like for safety of keeping children or dogs inside. That's definitely not the intent. So yes, they can definitely get through small dogs.
So,
Yeah.
the Aurora Highlands people kind of had a little email discussion about Americana. And the main issue that kept coming up is the parking at the Bartlett and the impact of traffic, and that the majority of the parking is actually in the Bartlett as opposed to being in the Americana. And there is the Amazon child care center is going to be right there. So at certain hours, if you are using that car regularly from the Bartlett, that's going to be an issue. The two other issues with it, how the people who have their cars over there, when they do major shopping or whatever, how are they going to get their stuff delivered to their apartment? And one of our group said he was in a building a while ago that in that situation where they lived in one place and the offsite parking was somewhere else, and he hated it. It was just so hard every time they had shopping to get from one place to the other, and it's a lot of extra work. Get your car, do your shopping, your car off. Are you mitigating this for the residents who have to do this? I assume are people going to have an option of getting parking in Americana, and when that runs out, then they can go to the Bartlett if they need it? And are those going to be subsidized somehow for these people?
Before they answer with kind of the technical and practical response, I do think it's important to point out that this is a principle that's in the residential parking guidelines, right? That there should be off-site shared parking, and it talks about guidelines used to utilizing unused parking in existing buildings may be used to meet parking requirements in new buildings. So we'll talk about the practical elements of it, because I think that's a really important question, how it's going to work in real life. But the policy guidance is there. I just want to make clear to everybody that exists.
And I think, one of the decisions that we had to make early on when we decided to kind of structure it this way was the target demographic of the renter, right? So, younger professionals, many of whom probably will work at Amazon, through our research and observations with, directly adjacent buildings that we own. I think with the addition of obviously Amazon and the commercial presence that brings, but also all of the other kind of multimodal improvements that will happen over the next decade, and access to the metro and things like that, the ratios will start to come down. And we're certainly seeing that at the Bartlett, which is what helped drive some of this decision. But I think it's more a factor of the kind of segmentation we've selected for this specific building, which is, again, targeted to younger renters, many of which already don't have cars that might live downtown or otherwise. And so we wanted to make sure we considered the types of people and families that will live here and how they either use or don't use a car before we felt comfortable doing this. And I think the last thing I'd say is that from an operational standpoint, anytime you have shared parking, it's going to require heavy touch from the on-site property manager to make sure that grocery drop-offs and things of that nature are managed efficiently, and people have the ability to get in the building, drop things off in a designated area, and that's all kind of legible for everyone, because you're right, it's going to require an extra level of touch and management from an operational perspective.
I guess one of our suggestions was perhaps there could be a couple parking spaces in the Americana parking that could be like temporary good parking for these people.
Okay. We can take a look at that.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to make it full-time dedicated to that because you don't know when you're going to need them. But
right. Right. And maybe it's during, certain hours. There might be a way to do that so that we can reasonably expect that they might be vacant based on their location and time of day. And, I think we can get creative around it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to say great job designing the bike facility on Eads directly in front of this frontage. It's great. That doesn't happen. I always have notes on the bike facility. And also that I'm supportive of the off-site parking. I lived my first apartment in Arlington fresh out of college. Had not quite off-site parking, but I moved in not having a car. When I bought a car, I discovered that I was required to park under a different building in the same complex. So I think it was at least as far away as the Bartlett is from this front door. And it was occasionally annoying, especially in the rain, but otherwise not a big deal. And I think, we all know how much parking costs to build. So, if it means you guys are, $100 a month in rent under market because the parking is annoying, I would have happily taken that rent drop. As a fresh out of college person in Garland. So that's all I got. Thank you.
I had a quick follow-up question to the point Chris made earlier, where if the bike path gets built on Richmond Highway, how will people get to the bike path? And he had mentioned, would it be through the fitness center? The answer was yes. I'm looking at the fitness center. It doesn't look like there's a vestibule, so that's potentially people opening the door when it's 25 degrees outside. Everyone in the gym who's sweating suddenly gets this burst of cold air. So I just wanted to
So to clarify that, it's not in the fitness center. We are studying a vestibule and a hallway condition, not you and not walking into the gym and then disrupting everybody's workout.
Okay.
We definitely were thoughtful about it, and we didn't want to have that scenario. So it's not finalized, but that is definitely the condition that we're planning for.
Yeah, sure.
To follow up on Pam, something to say close to her. When this comes before the planning commission, I would like to see more specifics about, I understand using the off-site parking, that's great, but a little bit more specifics about how exactly that's going to work so no one gets hurt and we know exactly what the process is. We'll want to hear some specifics then, so if you could work on those for that.
Sure.
Pass.
Thank you, Shruti. Anyone online? I'll just, I'll add to what Pam and Nia were saying too, is that, this might be another example where it might be appropriate that the condition calls for an operational plan to handle, X. And I think it was SPRC 1 that we talked about conditions that include operational plans. I don't remember what it was for, but just it would be nice to see some more meat on that bone. So otherwise, I agree with Chris and others that I really am happy to see the utilization of the offsite shared parking, but it does. This will be a good test case for that in the county because this is one where it could go wrong in a big way. So yeah. Michael.
Yeah, sorry to come in late. Carol Fuller and I were chatting. We had a question about the percent for the EV parking. Is that 5% and 15% number based on the parking that's on site at the Americana itself, or is that also the same numbers that are available at the off-site parking at the Bartlett?
Yeah, I'll jump into that. Yes, it's on site in here. It's not
okay. How about at the Bartlett? Is there EV parking there?
There is.
There are 13 spaces currently.
But yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
And just a reminder that James is once again not here tonight, but at Planning Commission, you're going to get asked about your plans for installing conduit and transformers expected. Yeah, was that what you were going to say?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. The spirit of James, yeah, I mean, knowing how many electric cars are supposed to be coming down the pike here, are you envisioning this now so that this doesn't become a problem in the future?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I think that we're ready to go on to green building and sustainability. I'm going to try to stick again first round with just informational questions. We're advertised until 9, so I think we're doing all right. Cindy, start with you.
Okay, well, just from a factual perspective, just to make sure I understand. So we talked about the HVAC on my non-transportation related question the first time around. Now, but looking at your answer about we'll be using natural gas to service condensing boilers for hot water heating. So is the hot water heating basically mostly gas?
It is. That's correct. The source for all of the domestic hot water is natural gas.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, that's it for me.
So question about the bird-friendly treatment. So one of the things that somebody raised was that it's that 8 to 36 foot span, but it's a 200-foot building. And I guess there was language included in December 2020 that says the project must minimize bird strikes by meeting specific criteria outlined by the American Bird Conservancy, which recommends 100% of all glass. Are we, given the size, the scope of it, and thinking about sustainability, are we following the 8 to 36 rule, or is there other things? Because the language suggests that there would be other considerations. I don't know if it's by building height or what that looks like.
Could start. So, kind of the baseline prerequisites of the county's green building policy is that 8 to 36 feet, which we are. So that is the minimum. Obviously, they can go higher, but that's kind of what the county kind of looks for at a base.
Okay, so that additional language is sort of to the developer. They want to meet that criteria,
right?
By the American Bird Conservancy. Okay.
So we did have a follow-up on that. If Kim, you want to jump in and talk about why the logic behind
that'd be great.
Yeah. Actually, it was ABC that approached the U.S. Green Building Council to help craft a specific credit within the LEED Green Building Rating System to put more metrics and KPIs around bird friendly instead of it being somewhat vague. So it's from ABC that actually worked in conjunction to bring this credit from a LEED perspective. And in addition to just the area, that span between 8 and 36, there were born very specific KPIs with respect to a rating system, if you will, for various materials, not just glass, in that zone as well. And I know in our write-up, we did identify that we will specifically, for those materials, be making sure that we're at that threshold and below. So it's not just that, okay, we're going to put bird-friendly glass there, but we're looking very specifically at the guidance in line with that particular LEED credit that is promoted by ABC.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of open space and the east-west passageway, I'm a little bit unclear on how you define the area toward 8th Street. And I think on one of the drawings it was shown as sort of a green blob. Have you made more specific, or do you have any more specific ideas about what it's going to be?
I think you might, just to make sure you're talking about the same thing, you might be referencing the space on the Embassy Suites site just to the north of the residential street. Yeah. That was shown in that way because we're still in the early stages of figuring out what a deal could look like with our neighbor to help kind of relieve some of these PUDO concerns. But I think even if that weren't to come to fruition, I think we've also been open with them and saying that that space needs work anyway from a landscape and hardscape perspective. So I think one of the things on our list to work through with them is if it's not a path that allows people to traverse to the site, what type of landscape improvements could we make to make that area feel a little bit more welcoming? Those designs haven't been designed yet because we don't know if they're open to it. I think they've been good neighbors, so we're hopeful we can reach some sort of solution. But I think until we have kind of official guidance one way or the other, we've kind of left it as a blank canvas.
When would you expect to reach some kind of agreement?
We're pushing as hard as we can. It's a big company, a lot of hotels in Crystal City, but I think our initial conversations have been positive. And I think the hope would be obviously before we construct the building, but I think at a minimum, just given the construction on the site, that area will need to see some level of new landscaping. And it's actually, I don't know if we have how big it is on the screen here. We could pull that at one point if it'd be helpful, but it's an important kind of gateway to the site, so we want to make sure it looks good.
Okay.
But just one clarifying point, I don't think the intent would be to create a like public park or anything like that. I think complement the building design, and then there's practical things that would need to be considered, with the tabletop and people walking through it and things like that. So.
Okay.
Just a question, what's the roof of this look like? Is it any possibility of solar or not?
The roof of the building?
Yes.
That's a great question.
Yeah, we've done some studies based on, equipment, et cetera, and so forth. There really isn't space for that, and which is the case with many multifamily projects. So we, as a company, have a commitment for carbon neutrality. So we actually satisfy the GBI-related requirements through our commitment to carbon neutrality and actually purchasing offsite.
Okay, but
yeah.
That's all I need.
I'll pass.
Good, thanks.
Hi, can you explain what dark-friendly lighting is in this building?
What?
Dark sky friendly.
Yeah, from a specifically LEED related definition, as you looking at very specific ratings for the actual light fixture, and it's called a bug rating because everybody likes acronyms. So bug is backlight, uplight, glare, BUG. So basically part of the design that you look at across those fixtures is to ensure that you're selecting ones that have the appropriate bug.
And where are you using all these lights?
They
everywhere?
The exterior, or any exterior light that's evaluated for that? Okay.
Good. Those were my questions.
I'll preface this question by saying this is not my area of expertise, but I'm a little bit surprised that for a modern high-rise building like this, the building systems aren't 100% electric. And so, is that feasible from a market perspective? Like how, it struck me as a little bit surprising.
I can take that because it's a very common topic right now, especially in cities with decarbonization goals. So the only practical reality to make the building all electric is to use electric resistance heat in the units themselves. And that increases the energy signature of the building tremendously. So you would go away from a heat pump design, which has a very high performance factor. So just a quick math exercise, electric resistance heat has an efficiency of 1, and a heat pump's gonna have an efficiency of 3.5 to 4. So it's a huge efficiency benefit. So the energy signature of this building would actually probably exceed the code levels if we went to an electric resistance heat type design. The problem is in northern climates, we don't have technology that can handle cold weather yet. So it's coming. There's 2 manufacturers that make air source heat pumps, but they have to be supplemented with, again, electric resistance heat when it gets below 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So the technology isn't quite evolved enough to get it to where we can have central systems that can service a building like this efficiently with high coefficients of performance. It'll get there because we have to get there, but right now, it's aside from something that the site's not capable of, like a geo exchange system underneath the building. You don't have a footprint to put enough capacity on site. There just really isn't the technology yet to make it all electric.
And how about on the water side?
A water side, there are options. You can go, again, to electric resistance heat. You can look at heat pump domestic water heaters. That is, I believe, something we studied in this project as well, one of the earlier evaluations.
So the height of the building becomes a challenge for that, the configuration.
So to simplify, if you go 100% electric, you have to use way more energy.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
5 times as much energy.
I assure you, this is something the commercial real estate industry in general is grappling with, is that, in the transition, in the decarbonization world, is that the reality is that for a period of time within that, every building signature is going to be using more energy. And how do we really, transition in a smart, meaningful way? So,
great, thank you.
Best.
I had a question related to bird-friendly glass and the tree canopy around the building, the trees that you all are planning to plant. Do you know what the average height and maturity of those trees will be? And I only ask because I'm on the American Bird Conservancy's website, and they actually suggest that the height of the bird-friendly glass should be the average height of the local tree canopy, but perhaps adding as much as 50 to 100% to account for birds flying above trees. And they say their general guidelines are 40 feet to 75 feet, which I know is different than Arlington County's recommendations, but I just wanted to mention that because that's from the ABC website.
Good, I think it's a great question.
Yeah, I think, I don't know what the full, that would be a question for the landscape designer, would be at maturity, but.
Someone
Well,
from LAI.
We do. Adrian, can you opine on the tree canopy?
So we are trying to maximize the tree sizes as much as possible. On the ground level, we are planting large trees, and all of that is part of getting the canopy coverage goals for our site. On the rooftop, we're also going between medium. I think we may have a few large and small trees. So we have varying sizes of trees, and we're providing structural soil beneath the paved areas to really maximize the growth of the trees and the health of the trees as well. So we could get on the site, we could get the trees could be up to 50 foot if they grow over time and maximize.
Thank you very much. So
So
I guess
we'll review what you're referencing and come up with some solutions to that.
thank you. Yeah, so if we can look at that, because whenever I walk by a building with my kids and there's a dead bird, they're horrified, as am I. But it's quite a visceral reaction to see like dead birds on the sidewalk. So
yeah, thank you for sharing.
Nia Shruti.
Two things. One, I want to align myself with Peterson. As you can already see, when you get to the planning commission, there are a few commissioners who are very into the bird friendly, and whatever you can do to tweak this beyond the requirement, that would be great. On the other front, the plantings, will they be native? You're going to get a lot of questions about that, and if they are, and as Adrian, as you talk about the trees, if you can come in with specific lists or ideas of what it is that you're going to do. A lot of times we, the planning commission, get people who are commenting about natives, and we don't have lists available yet. It would be very helpful if we had some semblance of a list before we're asked to approve something, and it just goes. So.
And just to clarify, you're saying a list of native trees that we're proposing?
Native trees, plantings, and if they're in shade, how are they going to survive, and things like that.
Typically, yeah, the lead reading system, that program, that's something that is recovered. So we can work with the team to make sure.
Yeah, we don't often get that list when it comes to
PCs, so early in the
we can do it. And hopefully in the maintenance of this, that it will have a chance to grow. Now, you're talking about putting trees on the roof, is that what?
That's correct.
Yes. And how successful is that? I guess the question is.
Adrian, you want to?
Yes. Yeah, so the success of the trees on the roof is all dependent on making sure you have enough soil volume, you're getting enough water to the trees, and we're paying attention to the winds and how they're coming across the building, and then making sure that we pick trees that aren't going to be susceptible to damage from things like wind. So all of that is being dialed into what we're selecting and where we're placing it on the roof levels.
Yeah,
and again, like I said, the soils we're working to maximize the amount of soil volume that we can provide underneath the walkways.
That would be great, because I applaud the effort. I hope it works out. But again, biophilia is a huge effort that the county is trying to make too. So I would go back and make sure that in your plan right now, maximum biophilia is coming in with what, because you will be asked about it along the way.
Okay.
Shruti?
Oh, pass. Sorry.
Sorry. Anyone online? No?
Yes, this is kind of a sustainability question, but I guess I'm not really sure when to ask it. When the building is actually under construction, I guess I'd like to get a better idea of the lighting during that time. And the reason this comes up is with the Amazon site presently under construction, that place is like a lighthouse right now. Like if you were to take a look at it, you can literally see it from all over the 22202 zip code. And the reason is they leave their lights on, like every single light on every single floor is lit. If you go drive by there tonight, you can take a look at it. It's really, you know, we may say it's a temporary thing, but there's no dark sky compliance at this point. So I wonder if JBG could kind of address what is the protocol for the lighting during the construction phase?
Hey, Mike, this is Kedrick Whitmore at Venable. So there is a specific site plan condition related to lighting during construction. You're required as an applicant to submit a lighting plan and have that approved. And there are quite a number of requirements in terms of what that plan needs to show. And then you're required to follow that plan as you go forward. I can't speak to any other project, but it'll be part of the review and then the enforcement of the site plan conditions with this project.
Okay, thanks, Kedrick. Well, I think we kind of missed on this other one. I'd like to ask the county to be attentive to that. Thanks very much.
I have a question about the bird-friendly. Actually, it's a question about bird-friendly glasses that pertains to LEED certification. Did I just hear you that is now a credit towards a LEED certification?
Yeah, it was piloted. I believe the pilot began in 2015 was when it was created.
Okay.
USGBC pilots all of their innovation credits. And specifically, the reason that they do that is to see if it's repeatable, et cetera, and so forth, and other projects can benefit from them. So it was actually taken out of the pilot stage and placed in a permanent innovation credit stance a handful of years ago. So
okay.
It's certainly something that we can look at specifically going after for this project. I don't think that we have it on the list right now. But I believe that based on the requirements, we're already doing a lot of those things. So perhaps it's, we can make that alignment and communicate the specifics a little bit better.
So the follow might actually be for Kevin and staff, actually, because my concern with respect to the height for bird-friendly glasses embedded in what Tenley raised. On the substance, on the process, if we've got baseline requirements that are also creditable toward other site plan mitigations or credits under green building incentive policies, I worry that we're making it. Double dipping is the word that comes to mind. That's not what I mean. That's pejorative. But we're effectively giving bonus credit for giving part bonus credit for getting a LEED Gold certification or a LEED Platinum certification, when the components of that are also reflected in the baseline. And so I guess that's not really a question or a comment for the applicant so much as it's something for us to think about. I don't want to say going forward because it's a higher level of concern, but yeah.
It's currently not required, or really the credit itself is not necessarily discussed in the G guide, but I see your going with that.
Yeah, my understanding of it is that, and I'm probably outside my wheelhouse here, but when it was initially adopted, there were certain credits that the county said, hey, these are really important.
Yeah.
So while they still count toward your rating, we really want to encourage you to do these particular credits rather than other ones. So I think the idea that it kind of counts to both is, I think, built into the system. Now, whether that's the right.
That might be the case.
Yeah.
That might be the case. And that might be the intent of, that might be the very idea. I guess I just wanted to weighing it. If something is, like if something is moved from, is effectively moved from our baseline to a way of going above the baseline, I don't know, I just, again, not, doesn't need to be solved here, or maybe it doesn't need to be solved, I don't.
It's a valid question, and I'm not fully sure the answer to that, but, you know, definitely follow up with the green building staff and kind of craft a policy to see if that was.
Yeah, and thanks for the background on.
Sure.
I think that brings us then to, unless there's anything else on green building and sustainability.
That was the factual.
That was the, I'm so sorry, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, over to me.
Yes.
Okay, well, I really appreciate the issue that Kevin Yam brought up, because of course, in this, and also I do appreciate all the progress you guys have made with the SPRC1. You weren't doing GBI, now you are. That is great. We're excited to see that. We of C2E2 are very excited to see that. But, you know, as we build for the future, we would love to see, you know, decarbonization. And as Kevin said, this is not his area of expertise, not my area of expertise either. So I reached out to the Building Decarbonization Coalition. Do you know them? Yeah, and they took a look at the plans on the site. And of course, this will shock you to know that they feel it's perfectly feasible to do this. And, you know, I have all these notes from them about, you know, modular, you know, the boilers and, you know, how there's all the synergies between, you know, all the stuff that you guys would understand. So I wonder if maybe it would be possible for you to speak with them. And they said you list some boilers you should be using to make the hot water heat as efficient as the HVAC. And again, you know, I could try to say this, but as soon as you ask me a question, it would be all over. So, I wonder if connecting you all with them would be a way to just make sure, because I know that technology is changing constantly. Obviously, this is what they're doing full time. They don't have the commercial constraints that you probably have, and you are way more familiar with your building than they are. But that would be one way to perhaps address my concerns about that.
I think that's a fair
It doesn't hurt to have the conversation, you know, that's how we advance and find new solutions, so.
Pass. All right, Steve?
Pass.
Eric?
I'd just like to comment again about the birds. Is one of the things I think she mentioned is that there's a change in the gold LEED standards. And if our standards don't change as a county, then sometimes you can get that double counting, if you will, because, you know, when they first come forward, it's not counted in gold. And then all of a sudden the rules change for gold, and now they count it for gold. And now you see what I'm saying? You know, gold standard, the gold LEED is not a set thing. It's changing. So if it changes, we have to change our rules too. We may have to change our rules. So maybe that's what's happening, is we're not as fast, or maybe we're missing some things that maybe the gold LEED is changing and not accounting for.
Right. Well, that's my concern, and I think the counterpoint to that is that, and we'll talk about this at some point. But
right.
Kendrick might be also right in saying that, like, yes, that's happening, but, you know, we've decided that at a minimum you have to do these components of it. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I don't mean to.
Right.
Sorry, Haley.
Pass.
Pass, I'm good.
Pass.
Just to piggyback, I mean, I would offer that there's probably costs associated with it, but if there is costs associated with it, maybe it's included in the public benefit, right? Or that's part of, you know, the proffer or whatever the right nomenclature is. It's, you know, just from a macro perspective, it seems like step one to sustain or, you know, carbon neutral is electrify. Once we electrify the grid, it's a long process, but this is a brand new building that's going to be in our community for a really long time. And you know, this is going to be, I mean, JBG, you are an incredible developer and builder. And, you know, hopefully you can help you get to a path where you can be more electrified in your buildings. Yes.
Yes.
Anyone else online? Okay, thank you all. We are at 8:35. I hope we won't need more than 5 to 10 minutes for public comment. And we're going to go to features, amenities, and community benefits. And again, Cindy, I'll start with you.
Okay, well, one last question. We talked last time about using gas to heat the pools, and we mentioned that the Arlington Y is building a huge new building with these 2 huge pools, and they're doing all of the heat for their pools. And again, I don't know if there's anybody connecting you guys with them or their developers, but I know you're using gas to heat that, the Americana. So, okay, then I'm passing.
No, thank you.
Community amenities.
The one question I had was, we had talked, I think the last time, looking at affordable housing. And so now looking at affordable housing, either contribution or on-site, how does that decision get made?
So we usually coordinate with our housing staff who kind of conduct their own analysis based on kind of the needs they see in the community in Crystal City. So that's kind of who we rely on for that determination of whether it's cash or on-site or mix.
But if it's cash, who does that cash go to?
So it kind of goes into the county's Affordable Housing Investment Fund, which they use to do grants and then also gap funding for projects in the county.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just add one comment that open space is really, really important with a building that's maxed out to the density that this one is. And I just encourage the county to realize that that is a super duper important community benefit that has to be there, because otherwise you get a situation where you don't get enough parks and you don't get enough room to have open space. So the open space component is really, really critical from the community's point of view in community benefits. And please don't, as you're negotiating, it's highly important to the local community.
Haley?
Can you share what your approximate unit mix is going to be? Even ballpark, I know it can still change.
Sorry, just to clarify, the overall unit mix in the building? Yeah, okay.
You want to say? So 23% studios, about 42% what we're calling junior 1 beds, 9% 1s, 22% 2s, and 5% 3s.
Yeah. And I guess kind of going off of your question as well, at what point will housing staff or others have a sense of how much that contribution would be versus the on-site requirement? Has that analysis been done, or that's still pending?
Currently underway, but definitely before or by Planning Commission and Housing Commission.
Oh, definitely.
Doesn't housing go after planning sometimes?
I think it does.
Yeah, occasionally. Try not to.
I just remember Eric complaining about it sometimes.
Yeah.
I have questions as well about affordable housing. Do you all have a preference to do contribution versus on-site? And the Planning Commission usually prefers the on-site housing. I didn't realize sometimes that staff ask not for on-site, that sometimes they request the contribution. So are you all willing to do on-site if that is what staff requests?
We are. I think some of it will come down to the proposal and the unit mix and how that kind of works with our, within our program. But I think either a cash contribution or on-site units works for us, or some combination of the two.
Sorry, Mia?
Yeah. Piggybacking on Commissioner Peterson, there have been site plans that have come in from the Planning Commission in the past year or so where they came in with, we're not going to do affordable on-site, and there were a few of the commissioners who abstained, voted against it just for that reason. Now, these rentals that you're putting in this building, will they be at market rate?
Yes.
So there are going to be a lot of people that won't be able to afford them at the get-go anyway. And not to have on-site affordable units there, I just think you're missing the reality that, we just don't have enough housing for even medium income people versus low income. So I would just strongly encourage a conversation with staff. I sat through a board meeting where I represented the planning commission on a site where 3 of us and the planning commission had voted against. And in fact, they were grilled by the county board, and surprisingly, in the middle of the meeting, turned around and said, we will give more units and take some of the money away. And I think in general, the reaction was elation, and they were very pleased with that. So I would just suggest that you look at that very closely.
That's helpful context, and I think, as we have these discussions, I think relying on the expertise of the housing staff to kind of give us a better understanding of where the needs are is going to be an important part of that equation, presumably. Yeah.
Anyone online? While we wait for anyone to raise their hand online, if they do, I will just add that if there is a decision to go with on-site units, I hope that that is taken into consideration within the operational plans that are put in place concerning the shared parking. I think it's entirely appropriate to make assumptions about the purchasing habits of people who are able to afford market rate units in this building, and to make some assumptions like they're not going to be bringing large stuff from IKEA because they're going to be getting that delivered and installed in exchange for money. But those assumptions would not apply to the people who are living in any on-site units. On the other hand, I hope that you don't use that as disincentive to go ahead with on-site units. It's just something that would have to be taken into consideration. We'll go around again. Cindy. Oh, I'm sorry, Michael, and then Cindy. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, associate myself with all the affordable housing comments and Eric's open space comment. Can you clarify, is it an either or, it goes into a fund? Can the monies be directed toward the Pentagon City, Crystal City area, or is it just goes in that fund and nobody really knows what happens? Sorry, I didn't mean it that way, but
Yeah, so to answer your first question, it could be a mix. So a mix of cash and then some on-site affordable. I'm not entirely sure, the mechanics of the fund itself, but I think it's
yeah, I think
No,
you're right.
it's
No,
not.
yeah, it's one.
It just goes in and then the county decides.
There's one A.
Yeah.
All right, I guess I would say, from a Crystal City perspective, if it's not on site, we'd like it local, and if that's not an option, then on site certainly seems much more preferable. Thank you.
Is there, this project doesn't have the river house aspect to it, the other project?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Okay. And that wouldn't be an option as far as addressing the local concern, the locality concern.
I'm not entirely sure. I can.
That would have to be part of the conditions. That, I mean, in the PDSP items, and what Chair Weir is talking about, there were several projects that came forward in Crystal City proper, east side of Route 1, that provided affordable housing units in the James and River House. And Chair Weir, those site plans have specific conditions that say you will satisfy it with these river houses. Okay. In other words, we couldn't take the standard language and then say, we're putting these in river house. They would have to be specifically on site or cash contribution that's mandated by the conditions.
And that would probably open up a bigger conversation. I would imagine and consider that. Yeah. Okay. So let's pretend I didn't ask.
It's on the record, I can play it.
Okay, let's politely pretend.
Okay, this is not unique to this property, but there's a lot of bonus density here, and the community benefits, as we're discussing right now with affordable housing, are still being in the mix, being negotiated. The public is looking, the county board will be looking. So let's hope that there are very substantial community benefits in these categories, or other categories to be named later.
What she said.
At best.
I'd just like to overall comment that, like some of the things that they've changed over time, we saw at Crystal City a very early version of this, and it's much improved since then. Thank you very much. And we'd like to see, like a lot of the changes. And by the way, I do like the canopy or whatever you want to call it, the trellises. I do actually like them a lot. So you have at least one person who really likes them.
So I thank you for the preference for on-site affordable units, loud and clear. I won't belabor that. It's such a phenomenal high opportunity area. I will say that from the Housing Commission's perspective and I think the county's perspective, to the extent you can provide more family-sized units, 2 bedrooms. A project came to the commission just last week that had some 3-bedroom units that were set aside for affordable, and that was well received. We'd love to see that again because this is with the housing stock that's here. I think that's hard to get, so that would be really, really valuable to provide that.
I will associate myself with the larger units sort of emphasis.
I agree with everything, and I agree with Cindy. Thank you.
I would take affordable housing wherever we can get it. I'll offer the alternate perspective that there could be efficiency for dollars spent related to contributing into a fund and applying that to 100% affordable, i.e. spending the same amount of money and getting more units. But at the end of the day, we'll take them wherever we can get them. But there is an efficiency argument to be made.
I just want to say I commend the applicant and staff because I think it's a great preliminary set of buckets. We're hopefully seeing something in all of those buckets. And I'm also team tabletop, so.
I also like the tabletop. So other than that, I'll pass. Thanks for your responsiveness this evening.
Yeah, just in these processes, the beauty of them is that when a plan comes in and by the time it's finished, it's much changed and usually for the better with everybody putting in something. So that's what these processes are for. So thank you for doing that. We appreciate that.
Anyone on the virtual on the topic of features, amenities, and community benefits? Jim.
Yeah, I'm very happy about the affordable housing. Definitely, if we can get larger units, let's do that. But I also am very much open and sympathetic with the argument that let's also at efficiency. What would get us the most number of units? Is it a contribution? Is it on site? Is it local? I would think it's appropriate for us to do that sort of analysis on these on every project. But the more housing we can get is always the best. And yeah, I also like the tabletop. I did last time. I seem to like it. It's a great feature, and it definitely, I think, improves the overall look of that street and will distinguish one block from another. So those are my comments.
So I'm going to entertain once more around the circle for overall wrap-up comments, although a lot of people took the opportunity to do that, so I invite you to pass if you're good on that. But I still want to give everyone one last shot. I'm seeing nodding, I'm seeing shaking heads. Okay, great. Any final overall comments? Well, Jim and Carol, what about you?
The only other comment I want to raise is that I am very gratified to see yet another project that has shared parking, from off-site shared parking. This is a great trend that I'd like to see continue. We have definitely overparked Crystal City, and this takes advantage of what's already in place, and I think that's great. And I look forward to seeing that happen in additional new projects that go up in the National Landing neighborhood. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And Carol, if you don't mind, we're going to take your comment in public comment just because Mike is present. Is anyone else signed up for public comment? Oh, all right. Well, Carol, we'll go right to you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that because I had asked Mike to ask this question. It's a clarification. Sorry about that. I'm taking space.
And I apologize if it's in the materials because I have not been able to get online for a couple of weeks. I've been out of town. But the clarification is about the contribution for open space, particularly Metro Park, Metro Market Square. In the past, I had heard the figure of $300,000. Is that still being talked about, or is there a figure being done?
So we're currently figuring out the figure, but I believe it will cover most of the cost for design and construction. So I would imagine it'd be higher than that.
That would be wonderful. Thank you very much.
No one else on public comment, then we will be adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.